Welcome everyone to our third annual Daoist Gate Conference. This year we're focusing on Chinese medicine and healing, ancient Daoist wisdom, and its influence on modern Chinese medical treatment. We are so excited to bring you 2 days of 4 talks and discussions each day surrounding healing, Daoist practice and history, and traditional Chinese medicine. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you might be in the world. It is part of Master Zhou's mission in creating Daoist Gate and the Xuanzhu Daoist Center to promote the arts of Daoism to a Western audience, and the Daoist Conference is a natural extension of that mission. The Xuanzhu Daoist Center is set in the beautiful green mountains of Francistown, New Hampshire. It both formally hosts a variety of retreats and intensive trainings of various lengths in Chinese martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, and other subjects, as well as being a place where people interested in Taoism could come, drink good tea, and practice together. I could personally recommend it quite highly as an immersive experience to study martial arts and Taoism. Before I left the States, I felt like I was living there part-time for a variety of different trainings. Daoist Gate as an organization has grown out of Shifu's vision as more and more of his students have evolved into teaching and administrative roles. Without the help of not only Zhou Shifu, but also people like Rosie, Brenda, Jamie, and others, this conference really wouldn't be possible. So without further ado, let's kick off this conference. With the popularity of old translations of books such as the Zhuangzi and Tao Te Ching being incredibly popular in today's modern world, it's sometimes easy for the average Westerner to view Taoism as a prehistoric religion or philosophy from a time long forgot. However, nothing could be further from the truth, with lineages of various Taoist groups not only surviving but thriving as they evolve and refine practices even in the modern day. As an acupuncturist and somebody who practiced many of these Taoist arts myself outside of China, I feel incredibly grateful for the tradition's habit of keeping a written record of practice instructions, principles, and case studies. This way, learning within a Taoist tradition feels like you're not only learning from your teachers, but your teachers' teachers, stretching back to the founders or early predecessors of some of these arts. Traditional Chinese medicine is no exception. There's an old saying that out of 10 Taoists, 9 are doctors. In my experience, this is held relatively true. So many people in the Taoist community have a traditional Chinese medicine background, and those who do not often know a great deal more about natural medicine healing than the average person with a medical background. In modern acupuncture school on the opposite side of the world is China, we read works attributed to notable Taoist doctors. We have points along the spine named after Huazuo, a Taoist and Chinese doctor known for pioneering herbal medicine analgesia during the surgeries he would perform. The Shennong Bansao Jin, a classic text of Chinese medical herbalism, is named after one of the mythical founding emperors of China who is said to have tried all the herbs in a meditative state in order to ascertain their effects. Sun Simiao was the author of herbal formulas and point prescriptions that are still in use well over 1,000 years later. We could spend the entire weekend naming examples. There are so many. One thing worth noting when we talk about famous Taoists and their impact on traditional Chinese medicine is the paramount importance traditionally placed on lifestyle prevention. To paraphrase the old saying, the superior doctor prevents disease, the mediocre doctor treats as the disease is developing, and the inferior doctor treats once the disease has already appeared. What is sometimes referred to as the Bible of Chinese medicine, the Huangdi Neijing, begins not by speaking of herbs or acupuncture, or even the etiology of specific diseases, but by expounding upon the rhythm of the seasons and the ways to live in harmony with them. However, so much has changed in the way humans live their lives since the thousands of years that these ideas came about. Are they still relevant to us? We have this idea that mankind has lost their way and that humans have become cut off from nature. However, books like the Huangdi Neijing depict a universe in which humans and nature were never separate to begin with. I could speak as an acupuncturist. The problems the classics depict arising within the 4 seasons still arise even when people tend to work all day indoors and seem to live completely out of sync with the natural world. Would this be possible if human beings were able to separate themselves from nature? I don't think so. The same herbal and acupuncture remedies from everything from diabetes to calf pain still function in modern times, and research supports the traditional use of herbs such as artemisinin, Qinghao, for malaria, so much so that the doctor who began synthesizing it for anti-malarial drugs received the Nobel Prize. So if there are 2 themes that I see running through our talks this weekend, they would be alignment and empowerment, that in finding connection to our deeper selves, to a more natural way of living and being, to a healer or teacher that can pass along these arts, that we have numerous tools and options at our disposal when faced with pain or illness. And we can use drugs or surgeries with dangerous side effects when necessary, rather than because we have nothing else to use. These talks can serve as signposts from the Daoist world, directions to help guide us in the wide world that is Daoist healing. We have a wonderful example of empowerment with our next speaker, Andrea Fakis. Andy has learned to manage her serious autoimmune flare-ups with a variety of specific breathing, massage, and exercise techniques she's learned from various teachers along her path. I first met Andy at Joe Shifu's intensive 3-month training program at Shenzhou Daoist Center in early 2021. We arrived in early in the year, and it was freezing the first few days. It was 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which if you go by Celsius, that's -10 or a little bit below in the morning. And so we were huddled into a small basement in the mornings, just the warmest place that we could possibly find to do a little bit of training. And we got to spread out in the afternoon, just all bundled up. And the training was intense, that retreat, even with the cold. There was 3, 4, sometimes 5 2-hour sessions a day, occasionally throw in a weekend seminar for another 8 hours a day for 2 days. At the least, if there wasn't a seminar, there was at least physical labor to be done on weekends, whether moving around stones or like planting things, just something to keep us busy. And I had to leave for work a few times, so I had like these built-in breaks. But Andy did that schedule with no break for a solid 3 months, and I watched her handle a variety of like really, really difficult situations in that time period. The first of which being these flare-ups. They were obviously really intense and something that she was basically constantly managing the entire time. I came away from the experience with her with a lot of respect for the way that she was able to regulate and make it through those 3 months with that pain. And I saw her use many of the tools that she's about to tell you about in her talk. I've trained, fought, played sports through a variety of different types of pain, witnessed friends with chronic illness, trained through various issues. And I think the most important, the most impressive part of what Andy was able to do in that time was that she was not only just managing that pain to a level where she was participating, but she had the bandwidth to actually learn during that time, which is something that's really not easy when you have a giant distraction. And that speaks to the work that she was putting in to take care of these symptoms on a regular, daily, sometimes even, bi-hourly basis. In addition to that lifelong passion for martial arts that Andy has, lifelong passion for Tai Chi, Qigong, Andy also has a background as a master chef, focusing on seasonal and local foods, and is certified in nutrition. So let's turn it over to her as she presents herself as a case study and reveals her own secret recipes that she uses to deal with her own flare-ups along the way.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. Those are really kind words. I really appreciate it. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I know it's like hard for some people where you're located. It's true. I have been studying martial arts for now 30 years. So I don't really like to say that number, but it's true. It's kind of funny now that I've aged to look back and see it's been so long. So I've always studied martial arts as far as I can remember. I was lucky enough to kind of be raised by bohemian parents, born in the 70s, so we were just coming off the 60s. So my parents were really still in touch with nature, eating well, eating only locally and fresh. We belonged to our local co-op where you actually had to work the co-op. You couldn't just go in and shop. You had to be part of the co-op, part of the community, which I feel like kind of stemmed my basis. So I was kind of used to being part of a community that was wellness involved and centered. And then, as the 80s and 90s came, so did more technology, more shortcuts, kind of starting to leave that era of the 60s and 70s behind. Parents having to work, life starts catching up with you. But for me personally, what my condition is called mixed connective tissue disease. So it's not an outer thing coming in, it's something naturally in the DNA. And just to kind of explain it just a little bit for you, my immune system actually sees my connective tissue as the enemy. There's some misprogramming there, and my immune system actually does attack my connective tissue throughout the body, causing a lot of early degeneration, lots of pain, lots of flare-ups. So during my martial arts training, and when I was young in my 20s, it was very easy to manage. You're young, you're vital, you're healthy. So a lot of these autoimmune diseases don't really start to show themselves till you start to hit your crest and start to naturally wear away. That is when the disease will actually come in and start affecting you more. The biggest things that affect this disease is stress. Like most things that you hear, stress is one of the biggest killers. Just to kind of relate that a little bit more to the body, when we have stress, we will enter our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn stages, and then our body starts to go into a protective guarding mode, at which place the first thing the body will do is tense. And so as soon as we tense the body, that is when the array of other symptoms can start to form. So that's just a quick background why I went into Qigong. And well, in martial arts, I was lucky enough that from a young age, even though I was doing external hard style kung fu, my master, when I was at a young age, Master Sun, he went to the Beijing Sports Science Center. He is actually a Sun lineage holder. But even though he taught Shaolin, which is Buddhism, he himself was a Daoist and was raised in the Daoist culture and with that lineage as well. So he was the first one who really introduced us to Tai Chi. So when we practice our hard martial arts, we had to meditate, we had to practice Tai Chi as well. When we were young, we used it as a martial art, the true ultimate fist, a fighting style. So for me, Tai Chi is always the ultimate. It is my favorite. And then while practicing Kung Fu, I was doing a spinning jump kick and I fell to the floor and my knee had been disintegrated. It was not an injury from sport come to fruition. When we got into the doctor and we looked at the knee, I had no meniscuses left. All my meniscus and my knee are gone. It's straight bone on bone just in there. So and my ligaments and my tendons were starting to get degenerated. So that was around the age of, I would say, 28. 28 is when I really just blew out my whole knee and had to start really looking at my life in a different way. For me, the physical attributes of Qigong and martial arts helped up here. It took every ounce of my extra energy out of me so that it did not ooze out in an unhealthy way. So when I was young, I really used the physical attributes to help heal a lot of other stuff that were going on inside, mentally and as well physically. As you're starting to go through puberty and age, there's a lot of crazy thoughts in there. If you have trauma in your youth, martial arts was my first healing stage, was actually starting to heal my hurt through a healthy lifestyle, taking all that extra angst and putting it into something healthy, really working on myself. Once I became injured, I went through a severe depression. So when I say I was a busy person, I was a chef who worked usually around minimum of 80 hours a week in fine dining restaurants. And then as well, I then trained martial arts basically every second I wasn't at work, or sleeping. So I was always on the go, always pushing. And when you get a severe injury and you end up laid up, that was the first sign that I had some deeper work to do. Mentally, I went through a very bad depression as I started to find out that the degeneration was kind of bad. I had arthritis at 28, 29, that in some of my joints looked like 60-year-old, 65-year-old. So even though I was healthy, I was physically in shape, all these other great health things for the body, what was actually going on underlying was a bigger mystery. And now it was starting to be shown through x-rays and stuff how bad the underlying disease was actually working. So in those stages is when I first started really getting into meditation. If some of you have been through certain stim physical therapies and stuff, it could be very, very painful depending on your physical therapist. Mine cranked that dial up. And I started to learn the meditation techniques to actually be able to deal with that pain. And it was funny because it worked. I would breathe, I would relax, I would calm myself down. When the pain would come, I learned to relax even deeper and breathe even slower. And it got to the point that then the physical therapist, because he did not see a physical reaction on my face when the stim would hit, he then cranked that bugger right on up. And I was like, no, I'm meditating. It hurts. Trust me, it hurt the first time, so we had a good laugh about that. But that was the first time that I really saw how if I went inside the mind, I could control my pain. I can't, I guess that's the wrong way to say that. I'm not controlling my pain. I'm controlling my emotional reaction so that it does not start to grow into something more than the brain's initial reaction to fight, flight response. Fawn. A lot of people don't know fawn. Fawn is when you're appeasing. You're not fighting, you're not flighting, you're not freezing. You're just in a state of trying to appease, trying to make someone happy so you stop feeling these feelings, which can be equally as detrimental to your health. So with Qigong, I first got into the meditation because I could not move physically, which is the best place to start. Then when I started seeing the rewards from the meditation, then I really started implementing that into my regimen. So with this disease, when I was young, it was actually all in the guts, the stomach, the intestines, again, super tied to my emotions. And then if you are someone who deals with chronic pain and inflammation, when that starts to arise in the body, that is what we would call the primary reaction, is that sharp pain that you felt, maybe brain fog. So these are primary reactions that over time, yes, you can change how your body will primary react. That is an advanced level. But first, for me, what was easier was to learn how to manage the secondary reaction, the emotional reaction, through the Qigong breathing meditation, breath work and meditation. So I'm going to kind of get into that a little bit for you. The process of traditional Chinese medicine is the umbrella. For me, trying to learn all the Chinese language and the scientific terms, that's not my strong point. I'm a doer. So the practice is where I really got my answers. And sometimes people ask, questions about how to get there faster. You really can't. I just like to be completely honest and upfront, a little blunt with people. When using this technique, you kind of have to be your own black mirror, be very honest with yourself. You have to reflect within, and with Qigong, at first, I want to say, I didn't think it would work. I can tell you, even being a martial artist and completely respecting the Chinese traditional way and the Daoist philosophy, when I meditated, it was the monkey mind. I it took years, and I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I stuck with it. And then when the change occurred, I didn't realize it. It's a subconscious change, and through practicing Qigong, through practicing the meditation, as the years progressed, I then noticed I was handling the situations differently. My reactions, my emotions, how I engaged with my disease was in a positive way. Those negative feelings, those voices coming in, like it's never going to get better. Oh, this time it's really bad. What am I going to do? Oh, am I going to have to go to the hospital? Am I going to have to call out work? All those are just that ego, the negative, coming in, and you're going to then create a more worse flare up, the more emotional you get. So for a lot of people who are new, I just say stick with it, because it takes time. You are retraining the brain, you're retraining the body, and that's not going to happen overnight, but the rewards are there when you stick with it. So number one, the Qigong movements I can do. Even on my worst flare-up days, the truth is you can still get up, stand. If all you can do is stand there and meditate and just try to put the mind inside the body, then that's doing. You're taking an active step in your own healing, your own recovery. The other thing is as well with Qigong and meditation and the Western medicine, sometimes we expect people to understand what our bodies are going through, but we're the only ones going through it. So you have to remember, you're the one who has led your life. The traumas maybe you've ensued, the different kind of injuries you might have, your lifestyle. So all of those things play that big role in being able to say, what's going on with me? You need to be your own advocate. So, if as an example, I have my mixed connective tissue disorder, but then I also have endometriosis. So if I go see the doctor for endometriosis, she might start to say, hey, I want to take you down this road, that road, this road. But then I have to be the one to say, whoa, 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 whoa. You're talking about messing with my hormones. My hormones are directly tied into my flare-ups. We have to then reassess. They're not thinking about the big picture of you. And that is one reason why I do like traditional Chinese medicine, fundamental doctors, is because they're not looking at the symptom. They want to know your history. They want to know everything that's going on, and they want to know your whole life, because that is then how they can correctly help you manage stuff. So, with the herbs and the traditional Chinese medicine, I do use professionals. I'm not a professional in that. The herbs are their own, mystery of abundance, of a world that you can step into. But what I could do is start to practice the home techniques, because again, when I go to a doctor, if I go to them with my symptoms and what is wrong with me, then it's going to be, here's some steroids. Number one, terrible for the rest of the body. Do not want to do steroids. Number two, the next way they would try to help me is with biologics. So again, they're starting to fight my own natural body, and they want to block my immune system and suppress it even more. But then, which I have done in the past, I've gone on the biologics and became even sicker than you could even imagine. And they would say, well, give it more time, give it more time. And I'd say, I'm so much sicker than I was originally. So for me, the outer medicines that Western medicine could provide weren't doing anything. They cannot heal me. So all that Western medicine could do is slow down the degeneration and provide me with pain relief through really nasty drugs. So for me, the option is not to do that, and then try to take that control into my own hands using the techniques of Qigong, meditation, Tuina. So just to kind of explain, through meditation, Um, I practice several different kinds. It depends on what the symptoms are, what the flare-ups are, but the basic one that you can start with is just telling the body to relax. We don't relax. Our bodies are so tense. So the first ones that really helped me with the autoimmune disorders was first just sitting, giving myself that time, and telling myself to relax. And as simple as that, just mantraing, relax, relax, relax. Just starting to take those small steps to controlling my mind and my reactions. Then with some of the breath work techniques that you learn in Qigong, now that is where I start when my flare-ups get bad, they get bad. Just to kind of give an example, when the connective tissue is really getting attacked, it could feel like a straight up injury. It could feel that I just dislocated my shoulder, and the whole shoulder is going to act like it's dislocated. And it will still be in its joint, but everything in the shoulder connecting to the brain is saying, mimic that pain, mimic that injury. So again, first it progressed into all my joints, and it could be that 1 hour it's my shoulder. 3 hours later, it could be attacking my left knee to the point where I am limping and I can barely walk and I cannot straighten that leg. So again, it's a very jumping, crazy disorder. Then as I started getting older, the disease actually started hitting the organs. So as just examples so you understand, it could feel like I'm having a gallbladder attack and that I need to go get my gallbladder removed. It will mimic that, and then it's up to me at that point how severe I let the flare up get, because when it first started happening, fear, tense, don't know what to do, scared, and when we start reacting like that, the body and the mind and the emotions start to go on this vicious cycle, of you already have the initial symptom, and now because that mind is becoming the monkey mind and spiraling and getting out of control, our emotions start to build, and we start to get ourselves worked up even more, and we're only damaging ourselves and hurting ourselves. So the first step was to learn how to control when I'm actually in that really bad flare up. So the breath work techniques taught me the first thing to kind of relieve that pain, which was breathing in and creating space. Thinking about the body, for me personally, as it translated for me, is I think about the body like a sponge. And when that flare up starts to engage, I'm like a dry sponge. I'm dry, I'm brittle, I'm hard, I'm tight, I would be easily broken. So the first thing I'm trying to do is breathe in the chi, breathe in the oxygen, and let my body start to feel the space, breathing it in and releasing, giving that area time and blood flow and oxygen and nutrients. So first, I'm breathing in through the pain, usually from the back side of wherever I'm feeling it. So for example, if it was in my shoulder, so one good spot for me is actually right in right in that great acupressure point. That is one major spot for me to get flare up. But I don't think about breathing the air through the front. I breathe it through the back, and I breathe in nice and relaxing and fill the shoulder and give everything space. Let the ligaments, the tendons, the cells, everything just expand. And then I'm going to breathe out everything I no longer want in my body through. So that was one of the first meditation techniques I was taught that really did work to start calming down the area. So the flare up is in less duration, less severe, which then means less damage in the long run to the body. When it came to the organs, the mind and body practice really, really helped because, like I said, I've had what feel like severe attacks, like where you're about to go to the emergency room. But over time, I learned it's an overactive nervous system. At a certain point, I'm not detrimentally going to die. It's a trained memory response. My memory and my body is playing off of past responses and kind of starting to replay those. Yes, having the connective tissue order, I have to make sure that my organs are not being damaged after these severe attacks. So I do get blood work twice a year to manage myself and to make sure that the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, everything is okay. And over the years, I started to learn they are okay. That what this is I'm having misfires, miscommunications, and I'm letting this control my mind. I'm letting the disease control me, and I needed to start controlling the disease. The other big one is I'm not fighting. I know that may be controversial to some people because you always hear fight the disease. Again, for me mentally, that word fight just makes me want to fight. So, some people, again, have a natural flight, freeze, fawn response. My natural reaction is to fight, and I will fight with everything. I won't give up. But that's a bad attribute, it's not a good attribute sometimes. So for me, I had to learn, I don't want to fight. I want to actually accept and surrender. And when I say accept and surrender, those aren't bad things. I over years with meditation is what I learned is this is not a battle. I am not battling myself. This is a learning experience. The pain is a teacher. Welcome it, let it in, feel it, understand it, try to get to the core of it. The more I practice this mental side of the Qigong and the Daoist philosophies, the better I got at controlling how bad these flare-ups were. So again, I started with breathing in and out through the muscles. The one I'll give you an example of is when it really started getting into my organs, one super scary time. So, you have a lot of connective tissue surrounding the heart, between the heart and the lungs. When I was getting really sick, I started getting flare-ups in that connective tissue. So, of course, the first time something like that happened, I was so scared. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was going to die, like how could these symptoms just be getting so much worse, it's progressing. But I had to stop and first realize and control that I'm okay. I'm okay. I'll be okay. I can control this and I can handle this. So when that flare up started to just squeeze, it felt like Indiana Jones. That guy had reached in and he was just squeezing my heart. That's how the flare up felt. It was really, really scary. But again, the learning the mind and body connection and to control that secondary reaction. I felt the pain. Okay, here it is. Accept it. Okay, I'm here. I'm in this moment. What can I do to better it? So I'm just going to breathe and relax. I'm going to tell myself, breathe, relax, let it go. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. Simple words, just mantra, can really get down in there and help you control that secondary reaction so you don't spiral out of control. If I, in that instance, would let my anxiety build, that squeezing around my heart would have just gotten tighter. And I might have had to go to the emergency room, but with being able to breathe, bring myself into the moment, accept the pain, surrender to the pain and just say, I'm going to be okay and I can handle this, then sometimes, yes, I'm still in a flare up and there's still pain, but there's no panic. There's no fear. There's no doubt in my mind of what's going to happen next. So, yes, some days you're going to have where you just can't get off the sofa, where you can't get out of bed, where you do not have that strength, and that's okay. But what we want to try to do is just reinforce that we can handle it, that it is in our control. And I know sometimes for people who are in these situations, that kind of seems like oh yeah, you're just saying that, but it's true. For me, I can't heal my disease, but what I can do with these techniques is control how bad the flare-ups are for me, how bad the duration is, and then what was the most rewarding part for me personally is even though I was having bad pain and I actually did have an injury. I had a tear in my labrum in my hip. So it wasn't just from an attack. So I do get followed up when I have severe stuff going on with me. But what we learned when we did the x-rays is in my spine and in my hips, in my joints, they're healthy. The degeneration from an x-ray 5 years ago, there has been no further degeneration. It's kind of halted, which, now that especially I am getting older, that's amazing, because before the degeneration was rapidly occurring. I was getting more and more bone spurs, losing more connective tissue in each of my major joints. So this practice has been able to help me minimize the degeneration without having to take, nasty medicines that either made me sick or were hurting my body in other ways. So that is the one, the one of the major ways, as well when I'm getting the major flare-ups and attacks more so. So again, we talked about attacks in joints and organs, but I get just muscle attacks where it kind of feels like lightning going through the muscle. Again, I could feel that maybe I tore a ligament, but I haven't. I do just get regular muscular neuropathological issues to the body. And that's where I'm really using the tapping and the Tuina. So, if I'm just relaxing, kind of, hanging out, watching TV, I do have a pack of little bamboo poles, and I just kind of sit there and tap the body, massaging the body. With Tuina, so again, if I'm having a severe issue and maybe let's just say like the quad, and I feel that it's spazzing and cramping out. Again, I kind of break the old traditions of if it hurt, does not touch it. If it hurts, poke it as hard as you can started to be my mentality. So, and I know that sounds kind of silly, and yes, it is kind of painful, but what I would do is start to massage the area, work it out, try to, again, listen to the body, feel the body. And generally I would use my thumb to really start to work in, and I'd start to find the most painful spot. So I would just keep working until I find where it hurts the most. And that's where I'm gonna press in as hard as I can. Not to, pain of, that you can't handle, but yes, I press in and it hurts, and I generally would press in for about 30 seconds. And then I start to massage out the area. And then I listen to the area. What does it want me to do? I'm just listening to my gut feeling. So if my body wants me to rub it vigorously back and forth, I start to do that. If it needs more of like a kneading, I start to do that. But I'm just listening to my body, working it out, telling myself to relax. And again, this really does get those flare-ups to kind of minimize and subside. But as well, the part that most people don't think of is that is hydrating the fascia. That is helping bring the blood flow, the chi, the oxygen, the nutrients to that area. after maybe it's had some damage. So you're aiding in your own recovery with that. Again, you could drink as much water as you want. You can take minerals. That's not going to hydrate your fascia. That's not going to bring in, the fascia wants to be touched, wants to be massaged, so in some of my classes, people laugh at me, but I do kind of say, get used to touching yourself. People don't like that anymore. They don't like to touch themselves. They're kind of removed from themselves. So I could say that my disease when I was young, I used to think about it like a curse, and why me? And I cannot do the hard martial arts like I want to anymore. I have physical limitations. I have a timeline, basically. I run out of time. My body will only give me so much energy, and then it's going to shut down. So through these processes of Qigong, of meditation, it really taught me how to listen to the body and how to learn the signals of when I am starting to tire myself out, when I need a break. So again, these tools that seem so simple and so easy, these qigong movements that don't take a lot of effort, what it helps in the long run is you to connect to yourself, and then you can help yourself by learning how to listen. So for example, like they say, you have micro expressions. Well, to a flare up, to your issues going on with your body, there are going to be warning signs. Just like your emotions, there are physical warning signs that if you listen to the body, you can start to learn how to cut it off at the apex, before it jumps off the hill. So, for me, it was learning that I'm going to start getting hoarse. That's one sign that a big major flare up is going to occur, is I'm actually going to get hoarse in the throat. I will start to get dry patches on my ankle bones and my elbows. Those are other things that when I start seeing that occur in the body, that tells me, Andy, you're not in balance. You have to start recalibrating now, else it's going to occur. So again, there are ways now that I can prevent these major flare-ups from occurring by watching and learning myself. And no one else can do that. No one else is you. Only you can be inside your mind and learn that. And especially with Daoist philosophy, and I love all Tai Chi, all martial arts. I have respect for anyone, any style, because you do have to find what works for you and what speaks to you. And for me, the Taoist philosophy of being true to yourself, getting in touch with yourself, being in touch with nature, that's what's enabled me to then start to control this beast up here, because the brain is responsible for emitting those chemical reactions. And then it's up to us how we are then, our secondary reaction reacting to those. And you can control those. There are parts of the brain that they say we can't control, but over time you can reprogram. So through the meditation as well, like just to kind of fast forward into now the more severe parts and then longer training. So one of the biggest ones was what I did when it initially started. So as soon as I feel the worn out, walking up the steps, feeling the pain in my knees, feeling the lingering in the body, is I laugh. I don't get upset. I don't let the negative thoughts come in. I stop them right there and I laugh. I greet it like an old friend. I talk to it like it's a human being. I joke with it like, what are you here to teach me? Oh, did I, so you got to change your mindset on that initial here it comes kind of reaction. Then if it's still there, start working into the meditations, working into the breath work, using the massaging techniques. But you kind of have to, there is such an array, there's something for everyone to find what works for your flow. And I'm just trying to think because, it's talking about a personal story. It's kind of, easy to go in different directions. But just to kind of sum it up, doing the Qigong movements, again, you can do them sitting. So if I am having a really bad day and I don't feel like I can push that hard that day, I can lay in bed and I can still gather my thoughts. I can still work on cultivating my chi, opening my meridians. So I never am completely out. There's always something that I can focus my mind on to, again, reinforce that I'm in control. The disease, the symptoms, they're not in control. And I really feel that with the Daoist philosophy, Qigong, Tai Chi, that gave me the mental fortitude to be able to stay strong, stay calm, and keep healing myself. So, I mean, I don't know. It's really, if you guys have like questions, or I could definitely try to answer some questions for you. It's just there are so many avenues. It's just about, again, learning that you can help yourself. You have the capability, as long as you're willing to be open and let it in. That's the major part. You do have to believe it, that you can do it, because if you're lying to yourself, the subconscious will know. You'll know. And again, that's kind of following the Taoist philosophy. You can't trick yourself. So when you start to try to not be honest with yourself, it's gonna come out, and usually in unhealthy manners, as well as in flare ups, like if you're not dealing with stresses in your life, sometimes you know them, sometimes you don't. It's going to manifest, and that could manifest into a flare up, into anxiety, into these negative feelings that are only gonna hurt you in the long run, not help your healing process. So, the training with Joe, and like Sam said, like being up at the mountain, that was a real push for me. And when I got home, my body shut down. I went through a real freeze up, but I still could show myself that if I wanted to push through, I could. If it, and again, like Sam could tell you, like there are days that I left the training hall crying, and embarrassed and hurt, because sometimes when you are living with these issues, and they can't be seen, sometimes you don't feel seen. Sometimes you don't feel understood. People don't know what you're going through on a daily basis. But through meditation and training, you learn to let all that go. It doesn't matter. What matters is me and how I feel about me and what's going on with me. And that might sound a little selfish, but it's your health. So you have to be in control of that. But, I would just say that you do need all of it together. You could just practice the movements, but if you don't give yourself time to meditate as well, to get in touch with yourself, you're kind of only working on one side. You need to put it together, the whole pieces. So, and in most of the classes, you will, even standing in a post, that meditation right there, you're gonna feel your body. Once the thoughts stop, you're gonna, like they say, your body will speak to you. It will tremble, you'll start tweaking. That's the first way to really get in and learn to listen to the body. If my shoulders are too high, I can feel it. I'll feel it in the back, start to droop, lower them. So again, it takes time, but it's worth it in the end. Like everything else, we've wanted to, have a quick fix, but we're not fixing anything. If it, there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing to be at war with. It's just a part of us to understand better, and that's in that acceptance and surrendering. It's not an enemy, it's a teacher. And it's a way for me to learn what's going on more with me, that more than anyone else could ever teach me. So is it a gift or is it a curse? A little bit of both. But if I didn't have this issue, I wouldn't have sunk in so deep to the meditative practices, to the breath work, to the Qigong, and I would have never learned all of this. So it's been the best teacher. Um, Again, it's that staying in the positive mindset that will really change the rest of your physical symptoms as well. But I mean, that's really all I got, Sam.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Andy, for your talk and sharing your experience. So I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but we're gonna go through I might touch on a couple things first, and then we'll go through a little Q&A. We have a few questions in the chat. So one thing that I wanted to mention is you mentioned the dry sponge analogy, and I think that's a really cool way of looking at the body, because when we have these fascial layers, and there's images, you can see under the fascia now with some of the technology that we have today. And we can see that, and as a practitioner, and if you obviously, and you have a bunch of experience even just on your own body, we feel these layers getting stuck. We feel them not being able to slide. And that's when you talk about hydration. That's like there's not enough, if things aren't moving, the space can't fill with water. So she's right on in terms of technically speaking, like, you're not hydrating your fascial layers, you're not hydrating your connective tissue if you're not able to actually move. And so massage is incredibly helpful. Movement is incredibly helpful, especially in a gentle way. Another thing that I think was pretty cool that you touched on was the different types of massage that you were using, because certain areas, when we talk about Chinese medicine and touch of the body, we talk about some areas are more excess, which means they're more stagnant, like something is kind of stuck and we need to move it. And some areas are more deficient, and they don't have quite the tonus. They don't have quite the kind of like, they're not kind of getting nourished enough. Some area, it's like a river. Like some areas, the river's pooling and not moving, and some areas it's just like flying through. And so using the different type of hand techniques, and like you said, listening to your body. We'll also have, actually, and this is going to be a great way to start and end the conference, you're starting us off talking about a decent amount of Tuina, and then David Wei is finishing the last lecture of our conference. It is actually on the 5 hands of Tuina. And so we have these, and Tuina, who people don't know, is Chinese medical massage. It essentially translates as like push and grasp, which are two of the 5 techniques. But there's a whole lot of techniques, even more than the 5, that we can use. And some are more, like you said, digging into a tender area that's stuck is really great for removing it. And then some areas where things that might even hurt. And that's why you touched on, people say you shouldn't do this and do that. It's all context related. And we'll return to that, just talking about Twain on the last lecture, but that's something to touch on too. Is this is a lot of context, and listening to your body is the easiest way to start engaging with that for yourself. So I'm going to go through the chat box here. One note that I do see is that let's see, where do we start? Andrea, I'd like for you to, if you want to ask this question, I'll get back to it next. But where there exercise with, I'm not quite sure if you're asking, are there exercises with fast breathing and holding on to intense pressure, or um, where are they? I'm just want you to clear that up first. Dia has asked about an autoimmune disease. Qijing Bamai are the extraordinary vessels, so they're a little bit different and a little bit deeper than the divergent channels that were mentioned before. And then let's go to Linda. Has a great question on, or sorry, I'll start with Andrea's question. How did meditation help regarding the identity often associated with a chronic disease?
Again, for that one, it was controlling the reaction. And I hope I'm understanding the question correctly. But before I actually had control, like, I'm not going to say I'm perfect at it. Everything's a work in art. But before, my mind controlled me. So when the disease would happen, I would get into an irrational emotional state, which then just, sends that snowball down the mountain and can crash into the lodge, which was usually what would happen. So with the meditation, it taught me how to control my reaction, which was half the battle of what was going on in the bottle. Was the emotional reaction is for me, for me, to be honest, it's 80% of how long you are going to be in a flare up, and how painful it's going to get. So I'm not sure if that covers that question.
Sure, she says I understand. I'll read the chat for you if you don't want to read it. She says she understands, so thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the next question, rephrased, is um regarding Andrea's question regarding exercises with more fast breathing and holding on to intense pressure in one
Mm,
position. Do you
mm.
use any exercises in that vein?
Fast breathing, I would have to say no. I really focus more on when I'm breathing, it's more on a shorter intake breath and a longer like exhale. Some people don't know that when you inhale, your heart actually is getting smaller, and then when you exhale, the heart gets bigger. There are many breathing techniques, and there are techniques where you do hold your breath. Those are advanced. I would not do any holding of the breath unless you were taught by guidance, because you can cause other issues with qi holding the breath. Yes, when at a certain level, to be honest, when I'm in qigong and I am out and I stretch, and in my final stretch now, I am holding the breath before I relax, but that took a long time. And really, you should be doing it with guidance, because again, holding the breath could cause so many other issues. And pretty much, we want to just keep that natural, nice, relaxing breathing going through and again, when we hold, we're holding. So if you are in a flare up, if it's a tensing, spazzing flare up, I don't want to hold it in. I want to let it go. I want to let it go and send it away. I mean, I'm sure there's other people here that are more scholared that can maybe go into the fast breathing, but not me particularly. I'm more of it, like, now I have, like, for me, the breathing techniques that I will practice are turtle breathing. I will work on breathing in from one side and exhaling through the other, breathing in, depending on what I want to do. If I feel that the chi is stagnant on one side, I'll turn sides and breathe. But mostly my breathing is more a slow, methodical practice.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. The next question we have from Linda, who says, thank you for this. Do you find a symptom slash movement slash result journal helpful?
Yes, especially depending on how your memory is. I do find that helpful. And now throughout the years, it's kind of ingrained in. But when I was new, I would take notes. I would kind of, watch what I felt was better. But I'm a pretty natural dirt person. I kind of go with the flow with stuff. So I kind of take it as it is in that present moment, because I mean, maybe if it was recent, I will, but what worked for me 10 years ago is not who I am today, not my body today. So it's more of having these techniques and then kind of trying different things in your basket at that time.
Yeah, definitely. Whether you keep a journal or not, like you said, it's really important to keep track of these symptoms, to know the cause and effect. It sounds like you
Yeah.
know that really well at this point, but especially for someone who might just be figuring out the course of their disease, it sounds like it might be a helpful practice.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like the hardest part with that is being honest with ourselves. I really, like, I hate to say it, but it's true, because sometimes it's hard to admit that maybe I did it, like I created that stress for myself. It's hard, or to say I have to let something in my life go. I have to make decisions because, like, again, for me personally, I have a window of time and then I'm going to burn myself out. So I have to make honest decisions. What do I really need or want to get accomplished today? And then I have to be willing to let the other stuff go and not beat myself up about it. It's okay. So I didn't get to do that today. It's all right. But that you do want to, like, where I was saying, like, and for some people it's a journal might help, is the triggers. Find your triggers so you can manage them. Yes.
Awesome. That's really good advice. Dia asked, can I ask you if what your condition is considered a fibromyalgia?
No, no, no. Fibromyalgia is its own kind of disease, and that one is it in fibromyalgia. I mean, it is a connective tissue issue, but your body is not attacking it. Like my um, um, not to say it, like my disorder is a rare disorder. It is a DNA, like the only way they found it was through DNA testing. It is a genetic marked disorder, but it's because it's so rare. They also can't really tell you too much about it besides those things, like they'll say, eat an anti-inflammatory diet, don't eat bread, stay away from sugar or dairy, but everyone's body's different. Like dairy doesn't trigger me at all, you know what I mean, where it could trigger other people. So the fibromyalgia, again, same thing though, in that disease, you have to keep moving. Like, and I didn't stress this enough, I don't think, before, but when you're having these flare ups, any kind of autoimmune disorders, it's very easy to give up and stop moving. That's the worst thing you can do for your body. You're just going to put yourself in more pain. In one of my older Tai Chi classes, we did have a woman with severe, severe fibromyalgia. And it kind of looked like she was moving in slow mo. But the thing is she kept moving, because if she stopped moving, she's going to stop moving. Everything is just going to seize up even more. So it is hard. And Sam can tell you, sometimes I've had to cry through my pain to keep moving, but you have to, you can't stop the movement, and everything else is just going to shut down on you. But yeah, but they are different issues, yeah. Under the same umbrella.
For sure. That brings us, segues nicely into our next question from Bill. During periods of intense martial arts training, were there particular movement practices that you found consistently helpful?
Um, for me, it is a well balanced qigong routine. Honestly, people don't realize that with qigong you can create a very strong self resistance. I can strength train, balance train, all in qigong, depending on how much I want to resist. So for me, it's just more the flowing movements, keeping the joint, learning how to properly move your joints, flow, and make the body connection, and realize that if I'm coming out with this arm, that, if this for you guys will look like my left arm, then that's stemming in my right leg. So it's not about one part of my body moving, it's about my whole body moving as one. And that structural stability, that's what actually it's not more so one movement, but learning how to use the body in a proper structural stable way that helps me then keep the body moving, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's more about balance through the whole body. So one movement wouldn't necessarily help. But like, let's say I have shoulder pain in this shoulder again. It's an easy go-to for me. Then yes, starting to rotate the muscle, the joint, slowly working it, opening it back up. There are specific movements for specific joints that you can add into your repertoire, like knees, squatting. For years I couldn't squat anymore because of my left knee, because of the bone on bone, the scar tissue, all that gunked up junk in there. And now I can squat again. Not to say it's always easy. If I don't practice, I'm not going to be able to squat, But if I keep working at it, then I can keep those joints mobile. So, and that is the beauty of Qigong is the deeper you dive, then you will find the more actual movements and how to match them. Like this month is it, well, not this month, but right now we're in earth element. So I am doing a lot of grounding. I am doing a lot of rooting. I'm really working on the pool, opening up the body. So for me personally, I am an earth element. It's my favorite time of year. And worry and the stomach issues. So for me, practicing those earth element qigong movements helps to make sure that I stay in balance and my worry doesn't go haywire, because that's again a sign for me. I didn't really talk about it because I'm not a master at it, but the more you dive deep, the more you see how actually everything is completely natural, that they're talking to you about. So, like one of the 6 sacred sounds for earth element is and you want to vibrate in here, and they'll tell you that you can do little bends as you exhale. But it's funny, if you have a stomach ache, if you ate too much, what are the natural things that occur? I don't know about you, but I can tell you in my history, if I've eaten too much, if I have something going on with my stomach, one of the biggest natural noises I make is, oh, it's that natural noise. It's natural for you. I'm just going to lower my camera. That if you have a stomach ache, what's the first thing you go to do? Rub the belly. Just give it nice, So the more you dive into it, the more you see these are very natural, very automatic responses, actually, if we just go with it, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I think you touched on a number of things, to Bill's question. One is finding relaxation in some of the same or even related muscle groups, like being able to relax the areas that may get tight from intense training. You touched on some of the Qigong for structure. Obviously, structure will allow you to relax. You touched on obviously breathing, and then also at the end, you touched on the sound Qigong. So those are, if you want to categorize what you said into like a couple different buckets, those are some areas that for people who are recreating, the wheel that you're giving them, kind of recreating using your roadmap. Those are some things that seem to really help you.
Yeah, because it just depends on how bad you're feeling to what you can accomplish. So then that's why it's such a beautiful art, because you can change, you can adapt, you can keep evolving with the art and with what's going on with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you're talking about movement, and one thing that I think is really awesome about Qigong is that people can practice it even when they're in pain. Like you said, I as an acupuncturist, we see so many different types of patients who have been told to like not do something, and they go from, doing all the things they love to like this gaping hole in their life of I can't do any of these things anymore. So sometimes just like being able to fill that gap with a movement that is beneficial for your health, that is something that you can really put your mind into, put your breath into.
I mean, after my knee surgeries, what the knee surgeon said was don't get up. And then the physical therapist was pissed, So it's like 2 different worlds talking that don't talk to each other. And the other thing is that he said, oh, well, for the rest of your life, you're just going to be able to walk or ride a bike. that's not an answer. That's not good enough. Like that is not, I'm not living the rest of my life like that. So again, you have to have the mental fortitude to say, how you want your life to be. And if you're not being honest about it, then your life won't come to, it won't happen. Like any good thing, we have to work towards it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, we have some wonderful comments in the chat here as well, but if people have more questions, please, feel free to chime in because that's what we'll be reading. We can all see the comments afterwards. And otherwise, I think that may be our time for our first talk of the day. We'll be back at let's see, I have to do the time translation in my head. 10:30 East Coast. I'm in Costa Rica, so that's going to be 8:30 my time. And we're going to hear from Larson Di Fiore, contextualizing Qigong, Tai Chi, and health cultivation practices
Yeah, I
within a
can't
Daoist
wait.
lens.
We have wonderful speakers, and for me, it's great because again, community. You learn from the community, and people are very passionate in our community. So it's really awesome to be able for me to share my story, which is hard. This is a lesson in its own to not stress out, but then to be able to hear all the great speakers coming up, I can't wait.
Absolutely. We have a great, thank you so much, Andy, for sharing. We have a
Thank you
great
guys.
rest of our lineup. We have a jam-packed couple days here. And these, just a reminder, these talks will be on YouTube within a week or two after the event so that people want to review, if people want to re-engage with the topic, you're able to do so. So I'll see you all in about 18 minutes.